Boy pointed to homeless man and said, "Mommy, look, it's Daddy." And from that day on, everything changed. Jennifer Mitchell had built an impeccable career as the marketing director of the largest advertising agency in New York City. That Saturday morning, as she walked through downtown with her 4-year-old son, Ethan, her carefully controlled world collapsed in seconds. It happened when little Ethan, with his blonde hair and wide eyes, let go of her hand and excitedly pointed at a disheveled man pushing a shopping cart full of cardboard and old newspapers. "Mommy, look, it's Daddy, it's Daddy!" the boy shouted with unsettling joy. Jennifer felt her blood run cold. How was this possible? She had never shown Ethan a single photo of Ryan. "Ethan, come back here right now," Jennifer ordered, trying to control the tremor in her voice as her son ran toward the man. The recycling collector looked up in confusion when he felt the little boy hug his dirty legs. For a moment, Ryan Cooper didn't understand what was happening. His tired eyes, in a face marked by invisible scars of disappointment, met Jennifer's, standing a few feet away. The recognition was instant and painful. "Jen," he murmured, barely audible, his unshaven beard unable to hide the shock etched on his face. "Ethan, come here now," Jennifer insisted, quickly stepping forward and pulling her son back. "I'm sorry, he's confusing you with someone else." "Is this our son?" Ryan asked, his voice choked as he stared at the boy, now clinging to his mother's leg, but still gazing at him with fascination. Jennifer was hit by a wave of memories she had spent years suppressing. 6 years ago, she had left Ryan after months of arguments over his workaholic tendencies and increasingly ambitious projects. At the time, she didn't know she was carrying Ethan, only discovering the pregnancy weeks later. Wounded by pride, she decided to raise the child alone, telling him only that Daddy went far away. "We have nothing to talk about, Ryan," Jennifer replied, adjusting her designer bag on her shoulder and struggling to keep her composure. "Come on, Ethan, we're late for lunch at Grandma Barbara's." "But Mommy, it's Daddy, the Daddy from the picture," the boy insisted, resisting. Jennifer froze. What picture? She had never shown Ethan a single photo of Ryan. In their luxury apartment on the Upper East Side, there wasn't a single trace of the man who had once been her husband. "Are you coming home with us, Daddy?" Ethan asked, with the cruel innocence of children. Ryan lowered his head, ashamed of his worn-out clothes, the smell of sweat and the streets that had clung to him for over 3 years. How could he explain to this child that the father he thought he knew could barely afford a room in a Queen's boarding house when his collections were good? "I can't, champ," he answered, his throat tight. "Why not?" Ethan pressed. "Because your father has work to do," Jennifer cut in sharply. "Come on, Ethan, that's enough." She practically dragged her son away as he squirmed, looking back over his shoulder. Ryan stood frozen, his calloused hands gripping the shopping cart handle as if he needed support to keep from collapsing right there. He had a son who somehow recognized him, even though they'd never met before. By the time they reached the parked car, Ethan had tears in his eyes. "Why can't Daddy come with us? Why is he dirty? Why is he pushing that cart with paper?" Each question was like a knife to Jennifer's chest. How could she explain to a child what she herself didn't fully understand? How had Ryan Cooper, the brilliant engineer she met in college, former project director for one of the largest construction companies in the country, reached that point? "That man isn't your father, Ethan," she lied, adjusting the car seat buckle. "Your father is far away. I've already explained that to you." "Yes, he is," the boy insisted. "He looks just like the photo Grandma Barbara showed me." Jennifer Mitchell's heart raced. Her mother-in-law. Of course, it had been Barbara. The woman had never accepted that Jennifer had abandoned her son in a difficult moment, as she put it, always insisting Ryan had the right to know his grandson, even after he simply vanished, ignoring all attempts at contact after losing his job. That night, after putting Ethan to bed, Jennifer dialed her mother-in-law's number. Her hands were still shaking. "Did you show Ethan pictures of Ryan?" she blurted out as soon as Barbara answered. There was silence on the other end. "He had the right to know what his father looks like," Barbara replied, with the infuriating calm of someone who believes they're absolutely right. "That wasn't your decision to make." Jennifer raised her voice, then quickly lowered, it afraid of waking her son. "Do you know what happened today?" Ethan recognized his father. "Do you know where?" "Collecting trash on the streets, Mrs. Barbara." "Collecting trash." Another silence, this time longer. "You saw him?" Barbara's voice now sounded strained. How is he? How do you think he is? Unrecognizable, dirty, thin." Jennifer felt tears escape against her will. "Why didn't you? Tell me you knew where he was." "I didn't know exactly, Jennifer." Barbara sighed heavily. "A friend told me she'd seen him a few months ago, but when I went to look, I couldn't find him. I thought maybe it was a mistake." "It wasn't a mistake." Jennifer collapsed onto the couch. "Ryan Cooper became a homeless person. And now my son won't stop asking questions I don't know how to answer." That night, lying in her king-size bed in the luxury apartment she paid a fortune for without anyone's help, Jennifer tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Images of Ryan flashed through her mind, the ambitious, brilliant young man she'd fallen for in college, the workaholic husband who grew more distant, and now that broken figure, pushing a cardboard cart through the streets of New York City. What had happened in the last 6 years to reduce him to that? And what would she tell Ethan now that the truth, one way or another, had come out? In the next room, Ethan slept, clutching a drawing he'd made before bed. 3 stick figures, 1 large and 2 small holding hands, with a smiling sun in the corner. Written in uneven childlike letters, it read, "Me, Mom, and Dad." The next morning, as she prepared breakfast, Jennifer was startled by the doorbell. Opening the door, she came face to face with Barbara, impeccably dressed as always, but with dark circles betraying a sleepless night. "We need to talk," the 68-year-old woman said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "Where's my grandson?" "Still asleep," Jennifer replied, closing the door. "What do you want?" "I want to know exactly what happened yesterday, and I want you to help me find my son." Jennifer let out a bitter laugh. "Now you want to find him, after 6 years? Where were you when he needed help?" "Don't you dare judge me, Jennifer." Barbara's eyes flashed. "You don't know half of what happened. Ryan refused my help, refused everyone's help. After that project of his failed and he lost his job, he just shut down. He spent days locked in that tiny apartment he rented after you two separated. By the time I finally got a copy of the key, he was already gone." Jennifer sighed, running her hand through her blonde hair. "Barbara, I can't deal with this right now. I have an important presentation on Monday, and Ethan is already confused enough." "We're talking about your son, Jennifer," Barbara's voice trembled. "About your son's father." Before Jennifer could respond, Ethan appeared in the living room, dragging his favorite blanket behind him. "Grandma," he exclaimed, running to hug Barbara. "Guess who I saw yesterday? I saw Daddy. He was working on the street." Barbara looked at Jennifer, as if asking for permission to respond. Jennifer just shrugged, defeated. "Really, sweetheart? And how was he?" Barbara asked, sitting on the couch and pulling her grandson onto her lap. "He was dirty, and his clothes were torn," the boy answered with the brutal honesty of children. "Why doesn't Daddy live with us, Grandma? Mommy said he went away, but he's here." Barbara swallowed hard, searching for words. "Your dad is going through a tough time." "Honey, sometimes adults have complicated problems." "Doesn't he like me?" Ethan asked, his eyes welling up. "Of course he does," Barbara replied quickly. "He just didn't know you existed, sweetheart." "Barbara," Jennifer scolded, pulling Ethan from his grandmother's lap. "Honey, go brush your teeth. Breakfast will be ready soon, okay?" When the boy left, Jennifer turned to her mother-in-law, furious. "Don't you dare tell him those things. Ethan is too young to understand." "And when will he be old enough, Jennifer? When he's 10? 15? Barbara held her gaze. "You can't keep hiding the truth from him, especially now that he's seen his father." Jennifer rubbed her face, exhausted. "What do you want me to do? Bring a homeless person into my home? Explain to my 4-year-old son that his father lost his mind after losing money? Give this story a happy ending? I want you to help your son find his way back." Barbara answered with a calmness that only fueled Jennifer's frustration. His. Way back. Look out the window, Barbara. Jennifer pointed to the view of the Upper East Side. We're on the 20th floor of one of the most expensive addresses in New York City. I built this alone. While your son, for some reason I can't understand, chose to live on the streets. He didn't choose, Jennifer. No one chooses that. Barbara's tone was so final that Jennifer fell silent. For the first time, she saw something in her mother-in-law's eyes she had never noticed before, a deep understanding of something she didn't know. What aren't you telling me, Barbara? The older woman took a deep breath as if gathering courage. Ryan has schizophrenia, Jennifer. He was diagnosed shortly after you separated. The work obsessions you saw were the first signs. When he lost his job and all his money in that investment, he had a psychotic break. He was hospitalized for 2 months, refusing to see anyone. When he got out, he refused to keep getting treatment, said he wasn't sick, that everyone was against him. Jennifer's legs weakened and she sank into the nearest armchair. Why didn't you ever tell me? He made me promise. Said you'd already left him for being weak, and that if you knew about the illness, you'd never let him see his son when he got better. What son? He knew about Ethan? Jennifer asked, stunned. Not back then. He found out by accident, when you did that big campaign that was featured in Time, where you mentioned your life as a single mother. He saw the photo of the two of you. Jennifer remembered that interview perfectly, 3 years ago. A feature on women executives balancing career and motherhood. She had hesitated to participate, but her boss insisted it would be good for the agency's image. And why did he never try to see his son? Why didn't he ever look for me? He did try, Barbara answered with a tired sigh. He even went to the agency's door once, but when he saw you walking out with Ethan, both of you so well dressed, heading to a new car with a driver, he just lost his nerve. He said he couldn't show up in your lives the way he was, that he needed to get better first. And what happened? Why did he never recover? Without a steady job, without proper treatment, the episodes became more frequent. Before I knew it, he had disappeared. For 2 years I searched everywhere, shelters, hospitals, nothing, until a neighbor saw him a few months ago collecting cardboard. When I went to the spot, I couldn't find him. Jennifer felt such a wave of guilt that she could barely breathe. For 6 years she had fed her anger, convinced that Ryan had abandoned them by choice, prioritizing his career over his family. She could never have imagined. Grandma, Ethan came running back. Are we going to look for Daddy today? Can we bring him food? He looked hungry. Barbara and Jennifer locked eyes, a silent question hanging between them. Ethan, sweetheart, breakfast is ready in the kitchen. Grandma will be there in a minute, Jennifer said, trying to buy time. When the boy left, Jennifer faced her mother-in-law. What exactly are you proposing? Let's find him, take him to a doctor, see if we can convince him to accept treatment. And if he refuses again, then at least we'll have tried, Barbara replied firmly, and your son will know when he grows up that his mother did everything she could to help his father. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. That afternoon, Jennifer, Barbara, and Ethan drove through the streets of downtown New York City, with the boy in the back seat as excited as if they were on a treasure hunt. For him, it was an adventure. For the two women, a mission weighed down by uncertainty. After 3 hours of fruitless searching, just as Jennifer was about to give up, Ethan spotted him again. There, Mommy! Daddy's right there! He shouted, pointing to a figure sitting on the steps of St. Patrick's Cathedral, meticulously sorting papers and cans. Jennifer parked in the first spot she found, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it might leap out of her chest. Beside her, Barbara clutched her purse tightly, her knuckles white with tension. Let's take this slow, Jennifer said, more to herself than the others. Ethan, you're going to hold Grandmother's hand, okay? Don't run to him like you did yesterday. The boy nodded solemnly, sensing the gravity of the situation even if he didn't fully understand it. They approached slowly. Ryan was so focused on his task that he only noticed them when they were just steps away. When he looked up and saw his ex-wife, his son, and his mother, he froze. What are you doing here? He asked, his voice rough. "We came to see you, son," Barbara said, stepping forward. "We're worried about you." Ryan ran a hand over his unshaven beard, visibly uncomfortable. "You didn't need to trouble yourselves. I'm fine." "No, you're not," Jennifer replied, more firmly than she intended. "Ryan, we need to talk about a lot of things." "We have nothing to talk about," he said, avoiding her gaze. "You moved on with your life, I moved on with mine." "Daddy!" Ethan tugged at his grandmother's hand, eager to get closer. "I brought you a present." Before the women could stop him, the boy broke free and ran the last few steps, holding out a crumpled drawing to Ryan. It was the same as the night before, 3 figures holding hands under a smiling sun. Ryan took the paper with trembling hands, looking from the drawing to the boy as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "You made this for me?" he asked, his voice choked up. Ethan nodded proudly. "It's our family, you, me, and Mom. Grandma Barbara said you'd come home one day." Ryan shot a questioning look at his mother, who just shook her head as if to say, "Kids, Ethan, why don't you go with Grandma to get us some ice cream from the stand over there?" suggested Jennifer, needing a moment alone with her ex-husband. "I need to talk a little with your dad." After Barbara led her grandson away, Jennifer sat on the steps beside Ryan, keeping a safe distance. "Your mother told me," she said bluntly, "about the diagnosis, about the breaks." Ryan visibly stiffened. "She had no right." "Of course she did. I'm the mother of your son, Ryan, a son you've never met, but who somehow recognized you from an old photo. I can't be his father." Ryan shook his head. "Not like this. Look at me, Jennifer." "I am looking," she replied, holding his gaze, "and I see the same stubborn man as always. Only now you desperately need help." "I don't need charity." "It's not charity, it's responsibility," Jennifer countered. "That boy deserves to know his father, and you deserve to know your son." "Why? So he can be ashamed of me? So his friends can mock him because his dad is crazy and lives on the streets? So he knows that despite everything, his father fought to get better," Jennifer answered with a sincerity that surprised them both. "And maybe so I can finally understand what happened to us." Ryan looked down at the drawing in his hands, running his calloused fingers over the childish figures. "He's beautiful," he said, almost in a whisper. "He has your eyes." "And your stubbornness," Jennifer added with a faint smile. "Ryan, let's make a deal. Come with us now, take a shower, eat a decent meal. We'll talk calmly, no pressure. You don't have to decide anything today." "And tomorrow? What then?" he asked, his eyes revealing all his fear. "One day at a time," Jennifer replied, extending her hand. "Come on." After a long hesitation, Ryan took the offered hand. His fingers, rough and cracked from life on the streets, met hers, soft and well cared for, a contrast that symbolized the completely different worlds they now lived in. When Ethan and Barbara returned with ice creams, they found the two still holding hands. The smile that lit up the boy's face was so radiant that for a moment, all doubts and fears seemed insignificant. "Is Daddy coming home with us?" Ethan asked hopefully. Jennifer looked at Ryan, letting him answer. Just for a visit, champ," he said, his voice shaky. "Is that okay?" Ethan nodded vigorously, smearing chocolate ice cream on his face. "And you'll sleep in my room. I have a bunk bed. I sleep on top, but you can have the bottom." Ryan glanced at Jennifer, unsure how to respond. "Let's take it slow, Ethan," she intervened. "Your dad will stay in the guest room for tonight." The tension in the car on the way to Jennifer's apartment was almost palpable. Ryan sat in the back with Ethan, who chattered non-stop, showing off toys and asking endless questions. Barbara, in the passenger seat, occasionally glanced in the rearview mirror as if afraid her son might vanish at any moment. When they arrived at the luxurious Upper East Side building, Jennifer noticed Ryan's discomfort. The doorman eyed the disheveled man suspiciously, but said nothing upon recognizing Jennifer. In the elevator, Ryan stayed in the corner, as if trying to take up as little space as possible. "We're here," announced Ethan, running inside as soon as the door opened. "Come on, Dad, I'll show you my room." "Ethan, wait," Jennifer said. "Your dad needs to freshen up first." Why don't you go organize your toys in the meantime? When Elias, the boy, left, Jennifer turned to Ryan. The guest bathroom is this way. I set out clean towels and some clothes that should fit. They were my brother's. He left them here the last time he visited from Pittsburgh. Thank you, Ryan murmured, still seeming out of place. I don't know if this is a good idea, Jen. Just one step at a time, she repeated. Take a shower, then we'll talk. While Ryan showered, Jennifer and Barbara spoke quietly in the kitchen. He's worse than I imagined, Barbara said, her voice trembling. So thin, so worn down. How long has it been since he took his medication? Jennifer asked, making coffee. At least 3 years, as far as I know, the older woman replied. The last time I saw him, he was already resistant to treatment, convinced he didn't need it anymore. And now, how do we convince him? Maybe you're the key, Jennifer, Barbara said, looking her in the eyes. He always listened to you, even in the worst moments. Jennifer laughed dryly. If that were true, we wouldn't have separated. You separated because neither of you knew what was really happening, Barbara countered. Him fighting the early symptoms of an illness he didn't understand, you thinking he was just obsessed with work. Before Jennifer could respond, Ryan appeared in the kitchen doorway. Clean-shaven and dressed in proper clothes, he looked like a different man. Still too thin, still with deep shadows under his eyes. But something of the old Ryan was visible now. Better, Jennifer asked, trying not to show her shock at the transformation. Unrecognizable, he joked with a shy smile. It's been a while since I had a real hot shower. Barbara couldn't hold back her tears, standing to embrace her son. After a moment's hesitation, Ryan returned the hug, closing his eyes. I missed you, Mom, he murmured. I never stopped looking for you, she replied between sobs. Never. Ethan chose that moment to walk into the kitchen, stopping in the doorway with wide eyes at the sight of his transformed father. Wow! Now you really look like the dad in Grandma's picture, he exclaimed. Ryan crouched down to his son's level. And how do I look in that picture? Strong and handsome, the boy answered eagerly, in an engineer's clothes and a yellow hard hat. Ethan, sweetheart, why don't you take your dad to see your toys now? Jennifer suggested, noticing the emotion in Ryan's eyes. Dinner will still be a while. As the two walked away, Ethan tugging Ryan by the hand, Jennifer allowed herself a moment of weakness, leaning against the kitchen counter. What are we getting into, Barbara? She whispered. This could end up hurting Ethan and us too. Or it could be exactly what we all need, the older woman replied, drying her tears. A chance to fix what was broken. That night, after a surprisingly calm dinner where Ethan dominated the conversation with stories about school and friends, it was time to put the boy to bed. To Jennifer's surprise, Ryan volunteered to read the bedtime story. Leaning against the doorframe, she watched her ex-husband perched on the edge of their son's bed, reading The Little Prince with different voices for each character, drawing laughter from Ethan. For a moment, she let herself imagine how things might have been different if Ryan had known their son from birth, if the illness had been diagnosed and treated in time. When Ethan finally fell asleep, Ryan tiptoed out of the room, closing the door gently. He's amazing, he said, his voice choked up. Smart, funny, sensitive. You did a great job, Jen. Thank you, she replied, caught off guard by the sincere praise. Come on, your mom already left. I think we need to talk. In the living room, sitting on opposite couches, the two ex-spouses stared at each other in silence for a long moment. Where do we start? Ryan finally asked. From the beginning, maybe? Suggested Jennifer. What happened after we split up, Ryan? Your mom told me about the diagnosis, but I want to hear it from you. Ryan took a deep breath, running his hands over his now clean face. Everything fell apart so fast, he began, his voice low. So after you left, I became obsessed with that sustainable residential complex project. I worked 18-20 hours a day, didn't sleep. I started having bigger and bigger ideas, constantly changing the design, convinced it would be revolutionary. And then my boss lost patience, said I was delusional, that the project had become unfeasible. When I refused to simplify it, I got fired. Ryan paused, as if reliving those memories was painful. Convinced I was right, I poured all my savings into it, and took out loans to try developing it on my own. You can guess how that ended. You lost everything, Jennifer finished, down to the last penny. That's when my mum forced me to see a psychiatrist. The diagnosis came: schizophrenia with traces of bipolar disorder. Apparently the brilliant workaholic you knew had been having mild manic episodes for years and no one noticed. Jennifer felt a pang of guilt. How had she missed it? Why didn't you reach out when you found out? And say what? Hey, Jen, turns out I'm crazy. Want to come back to me? Ryan laughed humorlessly. You were better off without me. You'd already suffered enough from my brilliant projects and obsessions. I would have helped, she replied sincerely. Maybe, but I wasn't in any shape to accept help. The medication made me slow, numb. I hated it. I stopped taking it a few times, had relapses, a vicious cycle. And how did you end up on the streets? Ryan looked away, clearly ashamed. Gradually. First I stayed in a tiny apartment doing odd jobs as a draftsman. Then I couldn't pay rent anymore, moved to a boarding house. When the money ran out completely, I started sleeping in shelters. The last 2 years, mostly on the streets. Ryan, Jennifer hesitated, searching for the right words. I'm so sorry for not being there, for not understanding what was happening. You couldn't have known, he shrugged. I didn't even know. And after I found out about Ethan from the magazine, well, I thought it'd be better for him to grow up without a mentally ill father. That wasn't fair to any of us, Jennifer said firmly. Ethan grew up asking questions about you that I couldn't answer, and I spent years believing you'd left us by choice. A heavy silence fell between them. Years of misunderstandings and missed chances hanging in the air. So now what? Ryan finally asked. What happens now, Jennifer? Now you have 2 choices, she replied with the directness that had made her a successful executive. You can walk out that door tomorrow and go back to the streets, and in that case, I'll have to explain to Ethan why his father disappeared. Again. Or you can accept my help. Go back to treatment, rebuild your life step by step, and get to know your son in the process. Why would you do that? He asked, suspicious. After everything? I'm not doing it for you, Ryan, Jennifer answered honestly. I'm doing it for Ethan. He deserves to know his father, the real father, not the man I saw on the street today. Ryan fell silent for a long time, staring at his hands. What? If I can't do it, he finally asked, his voice barely audible. What if the illness is stronger? Then we'll have tried, Jennifer replied, repeating Barbara's words. And Ethan will know we did our best. Before Ryan could answer, a noise at the hallway door made them both turn. Ethan stood there, his teddy bear clutched to his chest, his eyes sleepy. Will Daddy still be here tomorrow? He asked, his voice thick with sleep. Jennifer and Ryan exchanged a glance. Yes, champ, Ryan answered after a moment. I'll be here tomorrow. The smile that lit up Ethan's face was like a ray of sunshine breaking through heavy clouds. Without another word, the boy ran and threw himself into his father's arms. Ryan held him tight, his eyes closed as if trying to imprint that moment into his memory forever. Jennifer watched the scene, feeling something break and rebuild inside her at the same time. It wouldn't be easy. There would be tough days ahead, relapses, arguments. But looking at her son in his father's arms, she knew she'd made the right decision. That night, for the first time in 6 years, the family that had never truly existed took its first shaky step toward an uncertain but hopeful future. In the weeks that followed, the routine in Jennifer's home underwent a transformation. Ryan settled into the guest room, which gradually became his space. The first psychiatrist appointments and the start of medication brought days of adjustments and side effects, but he was determined to stick to the plan. Ethan blossomed with his father's presence. Every morning he ran to Ryan's room, jumping on the bed to wake him, eager to show off a new drawing or toy. The ease with which the boy accepted the situation surprised everyone, as if a missing piece had finally found its place. For Jennifer, the adjustment was more complicated. Years of building an independent life, focused on her career and her son, now had to accommodate Ryan's presence, with all the complications that came with it. There were moments when their old connection seemed to resurface, a shared joke. At dinner, a knowing glance when Ethan did something funny. And there were other times when they were practically strangers, carefully orbiting around each other like distant planets. One Sunday morning, as Jennifer made coffee, Ryan walked into the kitchen with a determined expression. "I need to work," he announced without preamble. "I can't keep living off your charity, Jen." Jennifer turned, drying her hands on a dish. "Towel." "It's not charity, Ryan. It's temporary support until you stabilize." "It's been almost a month," he insisted. "The meds are adjusting. I'm feeling better. I need to do something useful." Jennifer studied her ex-husband. The difference was visible. He'd gained some weight back. Color had returned to his face and his eyes were clearer and more focused. The treatment was working, at least for now. "What do you have in mind?" she asked cautiously. "I don't think going back to engineering is a good idea right now. It could be too stressful and—" "I'm not thinking about engineering," Ryan interrupted. "At least not the traditional kind." Jennifer raised an eyebrow, curious. "Then what?" "Remember, those sculptures I used to make as a hobby. Miniatures of buildings and bridges with recycled materials." "Of course I remember," Jennifer replied with a small smile. "You were really good at it. I still have that cable-stayed bridge miniature you gave me on our first dating anniversary." Ryan looked surprised. "Did you keep them?" "Of course." She shrugged as if it were no big deal. "So what about the sculptures? I want to pick that up again. I can use materials I already collected from the streets, but now with an artistic purpose. I've already started some small projects in the room. Ethan has been helping me too. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now back to it." Jennifer considered the idea. Part of her feared that any project might trigger obsessive behavior again, but another part recognized that keeping Ryan idle at home wasn't healthy for anyone. "Show me what you've made so far," she asked. Ryan led her to the room, where small sculptures made of paper clips, bottle caps, cardboard, and other recyclable materials were meticulously arranged on the table. There was a perfect miniature replica of MoMA, a tiny central park with trees made of wire and paper, and even a detailed reproduction of the house they lived in when they were married. "Ryan, this is incredible." Jennifer picked up the miniature of their old home, examining the intricate details. "You've always had talent, but this is on another level." "I have more time to focus on the details now," he gave, a shy smile. "And less pressure. I work at my own pace when I feel up to it. What do you plan to do with them?" "I thought about trying to sell them at craft fairs to start, maybe create an Instagram to showcase the work. I want to contribute to the household expenses, Jen, and show Ethan that his father can be productive, even with limitations." Jennifer felt a tightness in her chest. Even after all the hardships, Ryan still had the same pride as before, the same need to prove his worth. Some things never changed. "I think it's a wonderful idea," she finally said, "and maybe I can help with promotion. I know people in advertising who might be interested in your work." Ryan's face lit up. "You'd do that?" "Of course, She hesitated, searching for the right word. "We're partners in this journey now, aren't we?" "For Ethan's sake." "For Ethan's sake," Ryan repeated, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. In the weeks that followed, the sculpture project took shape. Ryan converted a corner of the laundry area into a small studio, where he spent hours crafting his miniatures. Ethan loved helping, learning about sustainability and material reuse in the process. True to her word, Jennifer talked about Ryan's work with some contacts. A friend who ran an alternative art gallery in Greenwich Village was particularly interested, offering him a spot in the next group exhibition. The day of the exhibition arrived and Ryan was visibly nervous. "What if no one likes them?" he asked, adjusting his tie for the third time. Jennifer stepped closer, fixing the knot with skilled fingers. "They'll love it," she replied confidently. "Your work is unique, Ryan. No one does what you do." "You've always been my biggest fan," he smiled, his eyes meeting hers. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. They were so close Jennifer could smell the aftershave she had bought him the week before. A flicker of their old magnetism pulsed briefly before Jennifer stepped back, looking away. "We'll be late if we don't leave now," she said, checking her watch. Ethan's been ready for half an hour, bouncing with excitement. The exhibition was a success beyond expectations. Ryan's sculptures, displayed on a central table in the gallery, drew immediate attention. The story behind them, a former homeless person turning discarded materials into art, created a buzz among the guests. A reporter from a sustainable art blog approached, interested in doing an interview. Jennifer, ever the strategist, suggested they focus on the art and creative process, without delving into details about Ryan's mental health or his past on the streets. He agreed, grateful for the guidance. By the end of the night, nearly all the pieces had been sold, some for surprisingly high prices. Ryan seemed stunned by the success, alternating between euphoria and disbelief. "I can't believe that woman paid $2,000 for the miniature Empire State Building," he remarked as they headed home. "She's a curator at a museum." "In Berlin," Jennifer replied, smiling. "She said she's never seen anything like it." "You have something special, Ryan. You always have." In the back seat, Ethan was fast asleep, exhausted from the excitement of the evening. He proudly wore a t-shirt Ryan had specially made for the occasion, with the words "Official Assistant of Recycled Art" printed on it. "I couldn't have done it without you," Ryan said, glancing at his son in the rearview mirror. "You and Ethan gave me a reason to try again." Jennifer felt a lump in her throat. It was the first time in years she'd seen Ryan genuinely happy and fulfilled, without the manic spark or excessive restlessness she now knew were symptoms of his condition. "You deserve this second chance, Ryan," she answered, keeping her eyes on the road. "We all do." In the weeks that followed, opportunities multiplied. An architecture professor from Columbia University reached out, asking Ryan to give a lecture on sustainable design. A home decor store proposed a partnership for an exclusive line of miniatures featuring New York City landmarks. With the money from the exhibition, Ryan insisted on contributing to household expenses and bought Ethan a special gift, the bunk bed the boy had been wanting, so when Daddy stays forever, he can sleep on the bottom, as Ethan explained with the simple logic of children. The boy's casual remark hung like an unspoken question between Jennifer and Ryan. Neither had discussed the future beyond the next steps of treatment and adjustment. The current arrangement, Ryan living in the house as a sort of permanent guest with no defined role in Jennifer's life, worked for now. But for how long? The issue came to a head unexpectedly when Michael, Jennifer's boss at the advertising agency, asked her out to dinner. What started as a work meeting to discuss a new campaign turned into a personal conversation, with Michael expressing romantic interest. "He asked me out," Jennifer told Barbara during an afternoon coffee at her former mother-in-law's house. Dinner, just the two of us on Saturday." "And what did you say?" Barbara asked, watching her closely. "I told him I needed to check my schedule." Jennifer fiddled with her spoon. "Which was technically true. Ethan has a school festival on Saturday." "And that's the only reason?" Barbara pressed, ever perceptive. Jennifer sighed, knowing she couldn't hide anything from her ex-mother-in-law. "I also don't know how Ryan would react. Things are going so well, he's stable, taking his medication properly, the sculpture work is taking off." "Jennifer," Barbara took her hand across the table, "you and Ryan aren't married anymore. You don't owe him explanations about your personal life." "I know, but unless there are other reasons for your hesitation," Barbara added with a meaningful look. Jennifer felt her face grow warm. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sweetheart, I've known you for over 10 years. I've seen how you look at my son, how he looks at you. There's more here than just concern for his emotional stability." "It's complicated, Barbara," Jennifer admitted finally. "Yes, sometimes I feel like there could be something between us again, but I'm scared. Fear of repeating the same mistakes, of hurting myself, of hurting Ethan if it doesn't work out." "And what if it does?" Barbara asked softly. "Have you considered that possibility?" Jennifer didn't answer, but the question echoed in her mind the whole way home. When she arrived, she found Ryan and Ethan on the couch watching a documentary about animals. The boy was nestled against his father, both sharing a bowl of popcorn, completely absorbed. The domestic scene was so perfect, so natural, that Jennifer felt a sharp pang of something like longing. Longing for something they'd never truly had. "Mom, Dad said maybe we can go to the zoo on Sunday," Ethan exclaimed when he noticed her. "Really?" Jennifer raised an eyebrow at Ryan. "If that's okay with you," he quickly added. "I thought it would be a nice family outing. But if you have other plans—" "No, I don't," she replied quickly. "I think it's a great idea." That night, after Ethan fell asleep, Jennifer found Ryan on the balcony gazing at the city lights. "Ryan, I need to tell you something," she began, deciding honesty was the best approach. "Michael, my boss, asked me out to dinner. Like, Sarah's date." Ryan stood still for a moment before turning to face her. "I see," he said, his voice neutral. "And are you going?" "I don't know yet." Jennifer watched him closely, searching for any sign of discomfort. "I wanted to talk to you first. Because of Ethan, because of our situation." "You don't need my permission, Jennifer," he replied with a forced smile. "Your personal life is yours. As long as I can keep seeing Ethan, the rest isn't my business." The polite, distant answer irritated her, though she wasn't sure why. "Is that all you have to say?" she pressed. "What else do you want me to say?" Ryan shot back, a touch of bitterness in his voice. "That I'm jealous, that I can't stand the thought of you with another man. I don't have that right, Jennifer. I lost that right 6 years ago." "I'm not asking you to claim rights." Jennifer crossed her arms. "I'm just trying to be honest about a situation that affects all of us." Ryan ran a hand through his hair, a familiar gesture of frustration. "Fine. You want honesty?" "Yes, the idea of you dating someone else bothers me. But that's my problem, not yours. You've moved on, built an amazing life. You deserve to be happy with whoever you choose." "And what if I don't know what I want?" Jennifer asked with rare vulnerability. Ryan's dark, intense eyes met hers. "Then maybe it's not the time to make big decisions," he replied gently. "Maybe we all need more time to figure out what we really want." Jennifer nodded, a silent understanding passing between them. The next day, she called Michael and explained she couldn't have dinner with him. She wasn't ready, she said. There were complications in her personal life she needed to sort out first. The following week was Ethan's school festival. Jennifer, Ryan, and Barbara attended together, sitting side by side to watch the children's choir performance. When Ethan spotted them, he smiled so brightly that Jennifer felt her eyes well up. "He's so happy," she whispered to Ryan. "He has everyone he loves in one place," he replied simply. After the performance, while Ethan proudly showed off his artwork displayed on the wall, one of the teachers approached Jennifer. "Mrs. Mitchell, how wonderful to see the whole family together," the woman remarked enthusiastically. "Ethan has been thriving since his father came back. The change is extraordinary." "Came back?" Jennifer frowned. "Yes, he told us all about it," the teacher smiled. "Since his father was working far away and has now come back to live with them. It's so beautiful to see how children process things, isn't it? He drew his family reunited in all his schoolwork over the last month." Jennifer merely smiled, not correcting the misunderstanding. At that moment, the simplified, optimistic version Ethan had created seemed almost possible, almost real. When they returned home, exhausted but happy, Ethan fell asleep in the car. Ryan carried him to bed with a naturalness that suggested he'd done it his whole life. "Thank you for today," Jennifer said when he returned to the living room. "It meant a lot to him to have both of us there." "To me too," Ryan replied, sitting beside her on the couch, closer than usual. "Jen, I've been thinking, maybe it's time I looked for my own place. Ethan's gotten used to me being around. I'm more stable. The sculpture work is going well." Jennifer's heart sank, though she tried not to show it. "If that's what you want—" "I didn't say it's what I want," Ryan gently interrupted. "I said maybe it's time, so you can have your space back, move on with your life." "My life is fine as it is," she replied without thinking. "Is it?" Ryan studied her. "Sharing your apartment with a mentally unstable ex-husband in some undefined situation that confuses our son, a brilliant executive like you deserves better, Jen." "Don't act like you're doing me a favor by leaving," Jennifer snapped, irritated. "If you want to go, go. But don't use my supposed well-being as an excuse." Ryan looked surprised by her reaction. "Do you want me to stay?" he asked directly. Jennifer hesitated, caught off guard by the blunt question. "Ethan wants you to stay." "That's not what I asked." The air between them seemed to crackle with electricity. Jennifer felt transported back years, when they were just two love-struck college students, before the complications, before the illness, before the hurt. "Yes," she finally admitted. "I want you to stay, but I don't know what that means, Ryan. I don't know if we can go back, if we should." He moved closer, touching her face with a gentleness that made her heart skip. "I'm not asking to go back," he said softly. "I'm suggesting we move forward, together somehow. I'm scared," Jennifer admitted with a vulnerability she rarely allowed herself. "What if you relapse? What if you disappear again? I can't go through that again, and I definitely can't expose Ethan to it." "I understand your fear," Ryan replied seriously, "and I can't promise I'll never struggle again. This illness is chronic, Jen, but I can promise I'll never disappear again, that I'll do everything in my power to stay stable, that I'll ask for help when I need it." Jennifer studied his face, searching for traces of the old stubborn pride, the refusal to admit vulnerability. Instead, she saw only sincerity and a maturity that hadn't been there 6 years ago. "One day at a time," she suggested, repeating the words that had become their mantra. "One day at a time," Ryan agreed, leaning in to kiss her. The kiss was soft, hesitant, full of memories and promises. When they parted, Jennifer rested her forehead against his, eyes closed. "This is crazy," she whispered. "Probably," he smiled against her lips, "but some craziness is worth it." The next morning, Ethan found his parents asleep on the couch, wrapped around each other. With the simple logic of children, he saw nothing unusual about it. It was just how things should be. Quietly, he climbed onto the couch, settling into the small space between them, and fell back asleep, completely at peace. The months that followed were full of adjustments and discoveries. Jennifer and Ryan decided to take things slow, dating as if they were getting to know each other all over again, which in many ways they were. They went out to dinner when Barbara could watch Ethan, talked for hours after the boy fell asleep, rediscovering each other as the different adults they'd become. Ryan continued his treatment, now more committed than ever. During his psychiatrist appointments, Jennifer occasionally joined him, learning more about the illness, how to spot early signs of relapse, and how to support him without smothering him. The success of Ryan's sculptures grew, surprising them both. An article in an art magazine bore the headline, "From Trash to Treasure, The Extraordinary Journey of Ryan Cooper." He remained humble despite the recognition, focusing on the creative process and time with his family rather than commercial success. Jennifer continued to shine in her career, but something had changed. Late nights at work became less frequent, business trips more carefully planned. She found a balance that once seemed impossible. One Sunday afternoon, 6 months after their reunion on the street, the family visited Central Park. Ethan ran ahead chasing pigeons while Jennifer and Ryan walked hand in hand. "I never thought we'd be here like this," Jennifer remarked, watching their son play. "It feels like we're living in an alternate reality sometimes." "A better reality," Ryan replied, squeezing her hand. "Even with everything?" she asked, referring to the occasional struggles they still faced, when his medication needed adjusting or stress triggered milder symptoms. "With everything," he confirmed. "The struggles are part of who we are now, and look what we have. In return." He pointed to Ethan, who was waving frantically at them, gesturing to a passing dog. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, Ryan found Jennifer in her home office, working on a presentation. "Can I interrupt?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Of course," she smiled, saving the file and closing her laptop. "Something wrong?" "Nothing wrong," he replied, stepping closer. "I just wanted to give you this." He held out a small box nervously. Curious, Jennifer opened it to find a tiny, delicate sculpture inside. 3 figures intertwined, made of silver metal wires so fine they looked like spider webs. "It's us," Ryan explained. "You, me, and Ethan. Together, no matter what." Jennifer felt tears welling up. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "There's more," he said, pointing to the base of the sculpture. Turning it over, Jennifer discovered a small hidden drawer in the wooden base. When she pulled it open, she found a simple but elegant ring. "Ryan." She looked at him, speechless. "It's not a marriage proposal," he quickly clarified. "Not yet. It's a promise that I'm committed to you, to Ethan, to our family, that I'll do everything I can to be the man you deserve." Jennifer slipped on the ring. It fit perfectly. "How did you know the size?" "I borrowed that silver ring you wear sometimes," he admitted with a shy smile. "Ethan helped me with the secret mission." Jennifer laughed, imagining the two of them conspiring. "So he knows?" "He knows I want to make you happy," Ryan said seriously. "The rest I left open." Jennifer wrapped her arms around his neck. "You already make me happy. Every day." The kiss they shared was a silent promise, a commitment that went beyond words or rings, a commitment to try, to forgive, to start over, one day at a time. Weeks later, Jennifer was called to Ethan's school for a meeting with his teacher. Worried, she rearranged her schedule, wondering what could have happened. The teacher, however, greeted her with a smile. "Mrs. Mitchell, I called you here to show you something extraordinary," the woman said, leading her to an exhibit of the students' work. "This is the essay your son wrote about my hero." Jennifer read the child's writing, scrawled in large, uneven letters. "My hero is my dad. He was lost, but he found his way back home. He makes beautiful things out of trash. He takes medicine to keep his brain calm. He loves my mum and loves me. When I grow up, I want to be strong like him, because even when it's hard, he smiles and tries again." Tears streamed down Jennifer's face as she read the simple yet profound words. "Your son has remarkable understanding for his age," the teacher remarked, "and an incredible family from what I can see." "We're still finding our way as a family," Jennifer replied honestly. "But yes, Ethan is truly special." On her way home that afternoon, she found Ryan and Ethan in their makeshift workshop, working together on a new sculpture. She watched them for a moment before announcing her presence, marveling at Ryan's patience as he taught their son how to bend a small piece of wire. "How was the meeting?" Ryan asked when he noticed her. In response, Jennifer showed him Ethan's essay. Ryan read it silently, his eyes gradually welling up. "I'm his hero?" he asked their son, his voice choked. "Of course you are," Ethan replied, as if it were obvious. "You came back to us even when you were sick and sad. That's really brave." Ryan hugged Ethan tightly, his eyes closed, pure gratitude on his face. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, Ryan found Jennifer on the balcony, gazing at the illuminated city. "Did you see?" he asked, still emotional. "He thinks I'm a hero. Even knowing about my struggles, about my time on the streets." "Children see the truth beneath the surface," Jennifer replied softly. "And Ethan sees you for who you really are, a brave man who faces his demons every day and keeps trying." "All for you," Ryan said, taking her hand. "You're my reason, Jen. My reason to keep fighting." Jennifer felt a wave of emotion so intense it left her speechless. She simply held him, feeling his warmth, his solid presence. How different the man in her arms was now from the one she'd found on the streets just a few months ago. And yet, at his core, the same heart, the same essence that had won her over so many years ago. "Marry me," she whispered against his chest, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Ryan pulled back slightly, looking at her in surprise. "What?" "Marry me," she repeated more firmly this time. "We don't need a big ceremony or fancy announcements. Just us, Ethan, your mum. An official promise that we're in this together. For better or worse, in sickness and health, literally." "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "After everything we know now, after everything that's happened." "Because of everything we know now and everything that's happened," Jennifer answered with conviction. "This time we're going in with our eyes open. No illusions, no unrealistic expectations. Just us, as we are, choosing each other every day." The smile that lit up Ryan's face was like sunrise after the longest night. "Yes," he replied simply. 1,000 times yes." They sealed their promise with a kiss under the lights of New York City, the place that had witnessed their separation and now bore witness to their new beginning, a beginning built not on youthful dreams but on a complex, imperfect, and infinitely precious reality. The next morning, they shared the news with Ethan over breakfast. The boy looked from one to the other, processing the information. "Does this mean Daddy's never leaving again?" he finally asked. "It means we'll be an official family," Jennifer replied carefully, "that we'll stay together and face whatever comes together. Even when it's hard," Ethan insisted, surprisingly perceptive for his 4 years. "Especially when it's hard," Ryan answered, pulling his son onto his lap. "I promise, champ, I won't disappear again." "So can I call you my parents at school?" Ethan asked, his excitement renewed. "Like everyone else?" "Yes, you can," Jennifer said, smiling. "We are your parents. We always have been, even when we were apart." "This calls for a celebration," Ryan declared, lifting Ethan onto his shoulders. "How about dinosaur-shaped pancakes?" As father and son headed to the kitchen laughing, Jennifer stayed at the table, watching them. She thought about the extraordinary journey that had brought them here, a journey that began with a chance encounter on the street, a little boy recognizing the father he'd never known. Who could have imagined that moment of shock and embarrassment would be the first step back home? Not to the home they'd shared before, but to a new one, built on deeper understanding, truer compassion, and more mindful love. When Barbara heard the news, she cried with joy. The following weekend, she hosted a small celebratory lunch at her home, where Ethan proudly announced to everyone present, "Mommy and Daddy are getting married again because they love each other, even though Daddy gets sick sometimes." The simplicity of the child's explanation moved them all, especially Ryan, who was beginning to accept his condition not as a flaw or weakness, but as part of who he was, a part that, with treatment and support, could be managed. 2 months. Later, in an intimate ceremony in Barbara's garden, Jennifer and Ryan exchanged vows for the second time. These weren't conventional vows. They promised patience on hard days, open communication, acceptance of each other's limits, and above all, the determination to choose each other again every morning. Ethan, dressed in a tiny suit, carried the rings with solemnity, announcing, loudly, "Now we're a real family." The few guests chuckled tenderly at the declaration, unaware of the profound weight those words held for the couple. In the years that followed, life had its ups and downs. There were times when Ryan's illness flared up more intensely, requiring medication adjustments and brief hospital stays. There were moments of tension when Jennifer's work stress overlapped with Ryan's more vulnerable periods. But unlike the past, they faced every challenge together, with understanding and concrete strategies. Jennifer learned to recognize the early signs of an oncoming episode. Ryan learned to accept help before things worsened. Ethan grew up understanding that his father had good days and not so good days, but that didn't diminish their love for each other in the slightest. Ryan's sculpture business thrived modestly, becoming a steady source of supplemental income. He never sought fame or large-scale recognition, preferring to keep his work at a pace that didn't compromise his emotional stability. Over time, he began holding workshops for homeless youth, teaching them how to turn discarded materials into art, passing on the second chance he'd been given. Jennifer eventually left the big advertising agency to open her own design studio in partnership with a friend. The decision to downscale allowed her more flexibility to be present when her family needed her, without sacrificing her professional fulfillment. One Sunday morning, 5 years after that fateful encounter on the street, the family had breakfast on the sunny porch. Ethan, now 9 years old, was focused on a book, occasionally reading interesting passages aloud to his parents. Ryan was absent-mindedly sketching in a notebook, drafting ideas for a new series of sculptures. Jennifer flipped through the newspaper, enjoying the comfortable silence between them. "Look, Dad," Ethan suddenly exclaimed, pointing to the street below. "That man has a cart just like the one you used to have." The three watched as a recycling collector pushed his shopping cart down the street, carefully sorting papers and cans. "Just like mine," Ryan agreed thoughtfully. Without a word, he stood up and went inside the apartment, returning minutes later with one of his most elaborate sculptures and a generous note. He went downstairs, approached the man, and spoke briefly with him before handing over the gifts. When he returned to the balcony, he simply explained, "Sometimes all someone needs is to know they're not invisible." Jennifer squeezed his hand, understanding perfectly. It wasn't charity, it was solidarity. It was acknowledging that in another life, under different circumstances, any of them could be down there, needing not just material help, but a gaze that recognized their humanity. That night, lying side by side in bed, Jennifer reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them there. "You know what I sometimes think?" she murmured, intertwining her fingers with Ryan's. "What?" he asked sleepily. "How a series of unlikely events brought us back together. If I hadn't given that interview years ago, you'd never have known. About Ethan. If your mother hadn't shown him your photo, he'd never have recognized you on the street. If we hadn't decided to take a walk downtown that exact Saturday..." Ryan turned to face her in the dim light. "Do you think it was coincidence?" "I don't know," she answered honestly. "Maybe. Or maybe some people are destined to find their way back to each other, no matter how far life takes them. Or maybe," he added, gently touching her face, "our son has a superpower for recognizing who truly belongs in his life. Even if he's never seen them before." Jennifer smiled, remembering that moment that changed everything. A 4-year-old boy pointing to a stranger on the street and exclaiming, "Mom, look, it's Dad!" With the absolute certainty only children possess. Sometimes, Jennifer thought, the deepest truths come from the most innocent mouths, and sometimes the most meaningful new beginnings start in the most unexpected moments. "Good night, love," she whispered, nestling against Ryan's chest. "Good night, my life," he replied, softly kissing her forehead. Outside, New York City continued its frenetic pace, indifferent to the small dramas and triumphs of its inhabitants. But inside that apartment, a family that had almost never existed slept peacefully, protected by a love that had survived separation, illness, time, and forgetfulness. A love that, like Ryan's sculptures, had been rebuilt from broken fragments, transforming into something new, resilient, and inexplicably beautiful. The end. Dear listener, has this journey of resilience touched your heart? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. Do you believe Jennifer made the right choice giving love a second chance? Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.